March 17, 1943. Tirpitz Sofa 76-78 Berlin. The folder crashed down upon the mahogany desk with enough force that Admiral Wilhelm Canaris' porcelain coffee cup spilled, blotting intelligence papers that could have led to execution had the Gestapo uncovered them. Unbelievable. The Americans are supplying us with misinformation via compromised operatives. From the tall windows of Abwehr headquarters, Canaris gazed upon the Landwehr Canal where Rosa Luxemburg's body had been discarded 24 years ago. Presently, as the chief of German military intelligence, he grasped a report in his shaking hands that threatened not only the core of Nazi propaganda but the entire quantitative basis for German victory. Based on intercepted transmissions and accounts from agents working in Mexico City, it was stated that Ford Motor Company's Willow Run factory was assembling one 4-engine B-24 Liberator bomber each hour. The B-24 Liberator, consisting of 1.5 million individual pieces, 450,000 rivets, and 30,000 distinct parts, came together to form an 18-ton airplane, coming off the production line more rapidly than Germany could output a basic Kübelwagen military utility vehicle. Major Friedrich Wilhelm Heinz, standing stiffly in front of Canaris' desk, had verified the intelligence 3 times. The statistics remained unchanged. What neither officer realized was that this point in time would set off one of the most catastrophic intelligence breakdowns in contemporary conflict: the persistent failure of German intelligence to grasp, accept, or properly relay the actual magnitude of American manufacturing capacity to the Nazi high command, sealing the fate of the Third Reich due to a terminal misjudgment of mathematical certainty. The disintegration of German intelligence concerning American output had begun 2 years before. In 1941, Luftwaffe General Karl Kohler delivered to Hermann Göring reports sourced from military attaché General Friedrich Bonhoeffer in Washington, which indicated that American aircraft production was nearing the rate of 2,000 airplanes monthly. Göring had laughed out loud, insisting that Americans were only capable of making refrigerators and razor blades, not combat aircraft. Göring informed Hitler at the Wolfschanze in December 1941, just 4 days following Pearl Harbor, that the Americans were bluffing. He argued that their democracy rendered them feeble. He asserted that their mixed population led to inefficiency. He claimed their Jewish citizens caused corruption. Göring maintained they could never manufacture what they were boasting about. By March 1943, German intelligence agencies throughout the Americas were reporting evidence contradicting all the prior beliefs grounded in Nazi racial ideology and economic theory. The intelligence originated from a range of sources: German-friendly Mexican industrialists, Spanish diplomatic officials, Swedish businesspeople passing through Detroit, and even seized correspondence from American laborers to family and neutral nations were among them. Every source reported the same extraordinary fact: Ford's Willow Run plant, on its own, was producing more heavy bombers than all German aircraft factories together. Oberstleutnant Nicholas Ritter, head of AB's Aviation Intelligence Division under Furl Luft, dedicated 3 weeks to scrutinizing the information. Ritter, who previously had a career as a Lufthansa pilot and had spent a decade living in America before the conflict, possessed a deeper understanding of U.S. industrial capacity than most German military officers. In the 1920s, his Manhattan apartment had given him a view of the Chrysler Building as it was being built. He observed Americans constructing what became the world's tallest building in a period of less than 2 years. Rear Admiral Ritter made his report to Canaris: "If these figures are accurate, as I am convinced they are, Germany has already suffered defeat in the war. At this point, it is merely a matter of numbers and time." The intelligence was delivered through winding, increasingly hazardous channels. Georg Niklas, who oversaw the AB's main network in Mexico City, had developed contacts among American businessmen who traveled easily between Detroit and the oil fields of Mexico. These businessmen recounted extraordinary things they had witnessed, oblivious to the German agents recording every word of their dinner conversations. On February 3, 1943, American oil executive Harold Morrison was present at a reception hosted by the German-Mexican Commerce Association in Mexico City. Following several tequilas, Morrison started talking about his recent visit to the Willow Run facility, which Ford had organized to highlight to potential investors its capability to service government contracts. "Gentlemen," Morrison remarked, not realizing that Wolfgang Blau, a German operative pretending to be an Argentine leather trader, was absorbing every detail. "What I witnessed is beyond words. The production line is more than a mile in length. The factory's vastness allows clouds to form indoors, and sometimes even precipitation occurs within. There are 42,000 employees, with thousands being women and African American women, assembling the most intricate machine ever devised." Morrison retrieved a pencil and began to draw a sketch on a napkin. "The bomber contains 2 bomb bays, each capable of holding 4,000 pounds of explosives, and 4 engines, each with an output of 1,200 horsepower. The airplanes are constructed in segment subassemblies, as Ford calls them, that unite like tributaries merging into a sea. The wing sections come from one area, fuselages from a different direction, and tail units from a third. They converge at specific intervals along the assembly line." Blau had inquired, aiming for a tone of casual curiosity. "Surely," he suggested, "such complexity would often cause malfunctions and production setbacks." Morrison replied with a laugh, "That's exactly what Consolidated Aircraft believed. They ridiculed Ford, insisting one couldn't manufacture planes as if they were automobiles. But Ford dissected the bomber into 60,000 individual steps. Each laborer repeats their specific function again and again. A woman who yesterday was preparing breakfast for her children now fits hydraulic lines in the aircraft's tail. Their training lasts days rather than months. Some of the most meticulous intelligence arrived via Francisco Franco's Spain. Colonel José Ungría, who served as the Spanish military attaché in Washington, formed close contacts with U.S. aircraft manufacturers, meanwhile secretly passing intelligence to Germany in trade for tungsten shipments vital to Spain's industry. In March 1943, Ungría attended an event at the Argentine embassy and encountered Charles Sorensen, Ford's production head and the mastermind behind Willow Run. Sorensen, under the impression he was interviewing with a neutral country that might purchase planes post-war, disclosed details freely regarding the plant's output. Colonel Sorensen declared, without realizing his words would reach Berlin within a fortnight. "When I toured Consolidated's San Diego plant in 1940, they built B-24s in the open air, none identical to the last, requiring 180,000 work hours each. I recognized we could outperform them." Ungría had probed for more information, citing his expertise as a military engineer. Sorensen, pleased with his accomplishment, supplied further explanation. "I spent an evening in my hotel in San Diego mapping the full process flow. Our plan was to manufacture bombers just as we built cars, not with employees swarming a stationary plane, but moving the aircraft past static workstations. Each individual would repeatedly perform specific duties, achieving skill through duplication." The Spaniard asked about workforce management amid such demand. "We established an apprentice school that trains 8,000 every week," Sorensen answered. "Women now make up 40% of our workforce. They actually excel at precision work, their smaller hands fitting tight spots, and their patience suits repetitive tasks. We have African American workers operating advanced machines. 16-year-old boys oversee logistics. Democracy," Sorensen added, "is about harnessing all available human capacity." Through Swedish, Argentine, Japanese, and Turkish contacts, German intelligence time and again received information corroborating Willow Run's output. Swedish engineer Erik Lundberg inspected the facility in March 1943 and reported, "Its efficiency defies European comprehension. They use 1,600 specialized machines, many designed for a singular task. The capital outlay is colossal, perhaps $200 million solely for tools." Commander Toshikazu Omi of Japan sent an encrypted message to Tokyo, intercepted by German intelligence, offering independent confirmation. This single site manufactures more aircraft per month than the entirety of the Japanese aviation industry. By April 1943, German intelligence pieced together complete information from 17 different contacts, all affirming the plant's production numbers. The statistics were overwhelming. At its height, Willow Run built 650 B-24s each month, with the total US B-24 output surpassing 1,400 per month. In urgent search of direct evidence, Canaris launched Operation Pastorius, sending saboteurs into America by submarine. George John Dash, who led one of two four-man units, had resided in the United States for 20 years before returning to Germany in 1939. His clandestine instructions from Canaris required him to gather data on airplane manufacturing before any acts of sabotage. On June 13, 1942, just after midnight, Dash's team landed at Amagansett, Long Island, arriving from U-202 in the early morning hours. Within a matter of days, overcome by the profound reality of his mission and aware of America's capability, Dash gave himself up to the FBI. During questioning, Dash disclosed information that astonished his American interrogators. Canaris himself told me Berlin doubted your output numbers. They considered Willow Run to be Allied propaganda. What he sought were photos, employee tallies, shipping logs, solid proof that would force Göring to confront the facts. FBI Special Agent Charles Landman responded in disbelief. They don't believe we're rolling out a bomber every hour. Dash replied with a bitter chuckle. Agent Landman, I lived here. I have seen your car factories. I tried to explain that if Ford made a car every minute before the war, making a bomber an hour now was entirely plausible. They charged me with defeatism. On April 20, 1943, for Hitler's 54th birthday, Canaris personally took the intelligence to Göring at Karen Hall, the Reichsmarshal's lavish hunting lodge north of Berlin. That gathering would gain fame among German intelligence as an instance of Göring's complete denial of reality. Canaris presented not only photographs but also intercepted records and many intelligence reports. He laid them out across Göring's immense wooden table as if showing losing cards in a game. Herr Reichsmarschall, Canaris began cautiously, we have independent verification from 17 different sources. The Ford Willow Run plant produces a B-24 Liberator every hour at peak. They have sustained this pace since January. By then weighing over 280 pounds, Göring picked up a photo that revealed the endless assembly line. Canaris, Göring sneered, do you take me for an idiot? These are clearly wooden facsimiles, props for propaganda. The Americans want us to swallow the claim that they turn out planes like sausages. That Willow Run plant cannot produce more than 50 bombers per month, I assure you. Canaris brought out yet another paper, an intercepted manifest from the Pennsylvania Railroad reflecting aluminum shipments. Herr Reichsmarschall, they use 16 million pounds of aluminum monthly in that single factory. That's beyond our entire national monthly output. Göring laughed derisively. So, he said, where do they find all this aluminum? Are there black workers and their women riveters providing it? Canaris, American propaganda has fooled you. 1 week later, Canaris received an order to appear at Wolfschanz for a direct report to Hitler. The meeting included Generals Jodl and Keitel, with Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels. Hitler, examining maps of the Eastern Front with the Wehrmacht preparing for Operation Citadel, the Battle of Kursk, listened restlessly as Canaris reported the intelligence findings. Mein Führer, Canaris spoke, fully aware his life was at stake. If the Americans generate 1,400 B-24s monthly, plus their B-17s and fighters, and then account for British output, soon the Allied bombardment will overwhelm our air defenses. Hitler's reply was predictable. Admiral, Americans can mass-produce basic goods, automobiles, refrigerators, but a bomber is not an automobile. It takes craftsmanship, skill, devotion. We spent 6 years readying for war. Are they to have achieved the same in 16 months? Out of the question. General Jodl reviewed Canaris's data and performed calculations. Even accepting just a quarter of those numbers, The result is genuinely. The numbers are wrong. Hitler broke in. The United States joined the war in December 1941. The claim that they built such a miraculous plant and reached this production in that brief time is impossible. Without Nazi leaders realizing, Canaris had gotten hold of Willow Run operational film footage via American intelligence connections in Switzerland. Smuggled out in Spanish diplomatic pouches, the film provided 5 minutes of assembly line activity. Canaris and his deputy Hans Oster viewed it in an Abwehr headquarters room locked tight. The camera moved the entire mile-long line, showing B-24s at every phase, progressing steadily forward. Laborers male, female, black, and white completed their jobs with robotic precision. In several frames, a visible clock tracked the action. "My God," Oster muttered. "It's real." Canaris then held a lighter to the reel, watching it burn. "We cannot let them see it. They would call it a forgery or denounce us as traitors." In November 1943, German intelligence procured aerial photographs of Willow Run, taken by a Spanish diplomat. Photo analysts spent weeks reviewing the imagery. Their assessments were as follows. The parking areas held about 12,000 vehicles, suggesting operations in 3 shifts. Finished B-24s could be seen on the nearby airfield, 47 airplanes ready for dispatch. The assembly line was in view through the roof windows, with aircraft spaced as previously reported. Rail sightings showed numerous freight cars depositing supplies. Hedman Bernard wrote, "Photographic data supports human intelligence. The production rate looks accurate. Immediate strategic reassessment is suggested." When Göring reviewed the photographs, he simply dismissed them as skillfully fabricated American deceptions, likely using models. Dr. Albert Speer, the Reich's Minister of Armaments and the only high Nazi official with real comprehension of industrial output, surreptitiously acquired the Allied intelligence. In his diary on May 15, 1943, uncovered after the conflict, he wrote of his hopelessness. "If Willow Run's metrics are even half correct, we are not headed just for defeat, but for utter destruction. They create more planes in a month than we do in a year. Yet I cannot utter this truth. Revealing it would be signing my own death sentence." Dr. Otto Ohlendorf, leader of the SD Inland and a trained economist, conducted analysis of American economic indicators. His December 1943 report to Himmler was direct and unambiguous. Ford's civilian output in 1941 was 1.1 million vehicles. Now this capacity is transformed into bomber manufacturing at current levels. By June 1944, U.S. output of B-24s by itself allows for dropping our total London Blitz tonnage every day. On Christmas Eve 1943, Canaris obtained estimates of projected American output for 1,944 to 18,000 B-24 Liberators, 12,000 B-17 Flying Fortresses, 1,000 B-29 Superfortresses, 40,000 fighters. A grand total of 86,000 planes. Hitler's reaction to being told these numbers? The Americans maintain that in 1944 they will manufacture more aircraft than all other countries have throughout history. It is a ludicrous assertion. By February 1944, Canaris was dismissed, accused of defeatism and betrayal. His successor, Walter Schellenberg, a Nazi partisan, would never oppose Hitler or Göring with such facts. Nevertheless, reality was soon beyond denial. On February 20, 1944, during Big Week, the U.S. 8th Air Force commenced Operation Argument, dispatching over 1,000 heavy bombers to attack Germany's aircraft factories. In just 6 days, they delivered more tonnage than the Luftwaffe's entire blitz on Britain had managed. Luftwaffe pilot Adolf Galland told Göring, "Herr Reichsmarschall, I have counted more than 800 bombers in a single group. These planes exist, and they are dropping actual bombs." On June 6, 1944, more than 11,000 Allied planes appeared over France. The Luftwaffe had fewer than 300 fighters to offer in resistance. Field Marshal Hugo Sparrow sent a pleading report to Berlin. "The enemy's aerial dominance is total. Our intelligence was accurate. We were not misled by the Allies, but by ourselves. By April 1944, Willow Run achieved record-setting output. That month, with 2 9-hour shifts spread across 6 days a week, they assembled 453 aircraft in 468 hours, almost one finished B-24 every 63 minutes. The workforce included 42,331 people, of which 11,000 were women, 26%, 3,800 were African Americans, 9%, and 1,200 were disabled individuals, 3%. Such demographic makeup would have completely shattered Nazi racial beliefs. Those labeled inferior or weak races by Nazi ideology outproduced the so-called master race at an overwhelming scale. Following the war, surviving members of German intelligence laid out the extent of their defeat. Walter Schellenberg testified at Nuremberg, "By early 1943, we were fully aware of American output. All experienced intelligence officers understood the data's accuracy, yet to report it honestly risked execution for defeatism." Hans Bernd Gisevius wrote in his memoirs, "The tragedy was never in lacking intelligence about American capabilities. We were awash in information. The real tragedy was leadership's refusal to believe intelligence conflicting with their ideology. The German agents who insisted on the truth suffered greatly." Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, executed April 9, 1945, at Flossenburg concentration camp. Hans Oster, executed April 9, 1945, at Flossenburg concentration camp. Alexis von Rhone, executed October 1944 for participating in the July 20 plot. Hans Bernd Gisevius escaped to Switzerland and survived. The U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey validated German intelligence findings. Willow Run built 8,685 B-24s from 1942 to 1945, with a high point of 650 monthly, and an hourly production rate sustained for several months. Costs dropped from $238,000 to $137,000 per airplane. During post-war interrogation, Albert Speer was questioned as to why Germany disregarded intelligence about U.S. production. To admit Ford was building a bomber every hour was to renounce our entire worldview. It would mean democracy was strong, not weak. Racial mixing proved to be powerful, not a liability. Women were just as capable as men. It would mean acknowledging that our war was unwinnable from inception. Who would have dared inform Hitler? Rose Monroe, real-life model for Rosie the Riveter, worked a rivet gun on the B-24 line. She and countless other women started working in factories after Pearl Harbor, never having done such work before. "We knew the importance of what we were building," Monroe explained in a 1984 interview. "Every rivet brought the war's end a little closer. We often did double shifts, sleeping in the parking lot between them. Our brothers, husbands, and loved ones were flying those planes." The refusal to trust intelligence on Willow Run had disastrous effects. Bombers continued to be built by Germany to the end of 1944, wasting resources. Investment went to experimental weapons over practical defenses. Strategy was based on facing hundreds of bombers, not thousands. Delayed peace efforts resulted as victory was falsely deemed possible. German economists analyzing seized records finally grasped the enormity. Willow Run cost $200 million. Total German aircraft industry investment from 1933 to 1945 equaled $400 million. The plant covered 3.5 million square feet. All German aircraft factories together covered 8 million. Willow Run's power consumption was 2.5 million kilowatts per month, equal to that of entire German cities. By war's end, the full reality was clear. Total B-24s made 18,188. Of those, Willow Run produced 8,685. B-17s totaled 12,731. American aircraft built from 1940 to 1,945 to 33,717. German output during the same period, 94,700. The U.S. manufactured 3.2 times more planes than Germany, while waging war across both oceans. Historians recognize the American production intelligence failure as one of the most consequential in warfare. Intelligence gathering was not at fault. German spies had compiled exhaustive, accurate reports. The failure was the inability to accept those truths. German leadership would not believe intelligence that undermined their core dogmas. Dr. Gerhard Weinberg concluded, by early 1943, German intelligence had precisely gauged America's production ability. If this information had been heeded, Germany could have sought peace up to 2 years sooner and millions of lives might have been spared. The narrative imparts significant insights. Perceptual bias. Reliable intelligence may be dismissed when it challenges fundamental convictions. Ideological narrowness. Political convictions can outweigh empirical facts. Organizational breakdown. Intelligence organizations that penalize inconvenient truths tend to receive agreeable falsehoods. Deadly error in judgment. Underestimating adversaries can result in disastrous mistakes. In 1985, during the dedication ceremony of the Yankee Air Museum at Willow Run, former Rosie the Riveter Rose Willow Monroe encountered Hans Rudel, a former pilot for the Luftwaffe. Rudel inquired, "How were you able to produce so many, so quickly?" Monroe replied, "Sweetheart, we simply showed up every day and got the job done. There was no secret. We clocked in, assembled bombers, clocked out. Democracy isn't difficult. It is just ordinary citizens giving their full effort." Rudel answered, "We were taught that democracy made you fragile, that your variety brought inefficiency. We were fed lies and those lies led to millions of deaths." In Berlin's destruction in May 1945, American intelligence officers came across a conclusive German intelligence file on Willow Run, dated April 20, 1945, Hitler's final birthday. Willow Run's output was confirmed. "We documented this fact 2 years prior. Our findings were dismissed. Germany perished not from a deficiency of intelligence, but from an unwillingness to trust intelligence that conflicted with desired beliefs." Successive generations should recognize that reality does not submit to dogma. Mathematical truth does not surrender to legend. Disregarded truth becomes disaster. That intelligence file was never delivered. By that time, Hitler was confined to his bunker. The Thousand-Year Reich had only days remaining, and thousands of American bombers, a large number produced at Willow Run, provided the concluding statement German intelligence attempted to convey 2 years before. History's judgment is unmistakable. German intelligence gathering was outstanding. German intelligence interpretation proved fatal. Within that refusal to trust unwelcome intelligence rests a caution for all countries. Reality is unaffected by your beliefs. Those who prioritize ideology above reality will inevitably fall victim to it. Willow Run created far more than aircraft. It demonstrated that democracy functions, that diversity is a source of strength, that liberty breeds productivity. German agents tallied every last one. German authorities accepted none. That denial doomed the Third Reich as certainly as any explosive.